Have you ever felt that no matter how much you give, no matter how much effort you put in, it never seems to matter? You cook the dinner, plan the perfect date, send the thoughtful message, but she still seems distant. You start wondering if it's something you're doing wrong. Maybe you're not romantic enough, not attentive enough, not successful enough, and yet, deep down, a quiet voice tells you that this isn't about what you do. There's something else entirely guiding her loyalty, something most men are never told. You see, there's a pattern in female psychology that is misunderstood more often than it's recognized. It's subtle, it doesn't come with a sign, and it doesn't respond to effort in the ways men are conditioned to believe it should. And this pattern, this invisible current, governs how women attach, how they trust, and how they ultimately stay devoted. Most men think loyalty is earned by deeds, by service, by sacrifice. And while gestures of care can be appreciated, they are rarely the deciding factor. What women actually respond to isn't the effort you pour in, it's the perception of reliability, leadership, and inner strength. It's a quiet recognition that you are someone who can navigate life with purpose, someone whose values are clear, and someone whose presence creates a sense of security, even when nothing is being said. The gifts, the actions, the attention, they are secondary. They are signals, not foundations. Loyalty, at its core, flows toward a quality she instinctively senses in a man, not a tally of what he provides. Now, this is uncomfortable for most men because it seems unfair. You give, you support, you go out of your way, and yet it may never be the thing that solidifies her commitment. And if you don't understand this, you can spend years chasing validation in ways that will never yield the results you hope for. That's why it's so crucial to step back and see the bigger picture. Female loyalty is not transactional, it's perceptual. It's an emotional alignment with something deeper than effort. It's about who you are in your essence, not what you do. By the end of this video, you'll see exactly why your actions alone are not enough, and more importantly, what actually shapes lasting connection and devotion. It may challenge what you've believed about relationships, and it may shift how you approach connection entirely. And before we go any deeper, if this perspective resonates, make sure to like and subscribe, because the insights we're exploring today are often the ones that completely change the way you understand women and yourself. Most men think loyalty is something you earn every day, like points in a game. You check the boxes, you call her, you text, you show up. But women don't measure commitment this way. What they feel loyalty toward is far subtler and far more instinctual than any action you take. It isn't your effort that secures it. It's your consistency of self, your ability to hold your ground and maintain your own sense of direction, even when things get complicated. Think about it like this. Women are wired to detect patterns. They notice who is predictable in a good way, who maintains emotional balance, who can navigate life without being derailed by every twist and turn. This doesn't mean being perfect. It doesn't mean never making mistakes. It means being someone whose presence conveys reliability without the need to constantly explain or justify yourself. And here's the critical part. Effort can't replace this. A man can do everything right on the surface, but if he wavers under pressure, if his priorities shift depending on convenience or desire, a woman will sense it, and it chips away at loyalty in ways actions alone can never repair. This is where so many men get stuck. They think, if I just do more, give more, try harder, she'll care more. But care and loyalty are not rewards for deeds. They are responses to perception of strength and alignment. Women are drawn to men who demonstrate a quiet command of themselves, who are not easily shaken by circumstances or emotional turbulence. It's not about control, it's about integrity. It's about showing that your life has structure, purpose, and self-respect, and that your decisions reflect values that aren't contingent on anyone else's approval. And yet, this doesn't make women unappreciative. Gestures of thoughtfulness, emotional availability, shared experiences, these things matter, but they are amplifiers, not foundations. Think of it as seasoning on a dish. The main ingredient is who you are and how you carry yourself. the kind of man whose life doesn't crumble when the unexpected happens, whose presence makes her feel secure without needing to demand it. That is what draws loyalty. That is what keeps her engaged, even when the excitement ebbs, or when life's difficulties push against the relationship. Understanding this distinction changes everything. It shifts the focus from what you do to how you exist, from striving to earn approval to cultivating a self that naturally earns respect and loyalty. And once you internalize this, you stop chasing reactions and start creating an alignment that is far deeper, far more stable. So, if you've ever felt exhausted by trying to prove your value or frustrated that your efforts don't seem to matter, know this. It's not about your actions, it's about your essence. Actions are visible, but essence is felt. And when she senses that your essence is steady, reliable, and purposeful, that is when true loyalty forms. There's one truth about female loyalty that almost every man misses, and it explains so much of the frustration you may have felt. Women are not primarily loyal to your actions, your money, or your gifts. They are loyal to a sense of security and alignment that only a certain type of presence can create. This is the invisible thread that determines whether she stays, invests, or withdraws. And most men, unknowingly, undermine it by trying to earn loyalty through effort alone. Think of loyalty as a response, not a transaction. A woman's loyalty is drawn to patterns, to cues that signal emotional and psychological stability. She is instinctively aware of whether a man's life has a steady center, whether he has values that don't bend to every external pressure, whether he can lead himself without constant validation. It's not about dominance, and it's certainly not about control. It's about trust in the reliability of his inner compass. That trust, once formed, produces a loyalty that no superficial act can replicate. Consider how often men interpret withdrawal or distance as punishment. They see it as a reflection of their failure to perform or provide. But in reality, withdrawal is rarely about the absence of effort. It's about perception. When a man wavers in his decisions, loses sight of his principles, or allows his emotional state to dictate his actions, it signals instability. And women, consciously or not, respond to this instability by retreating. Loyalty is not earned by frantic attempts to repair it. It is cultivated by steadfast self-possession. This is why relationships often feel like a paradox. You can give more than you ever thought possible, yet still feel disconnected, unseen, or undervalued. You might wonder why a woman seems more drawn to a man who does less but carries himself with quiet certainty. The reason is simple. She is drawn to essence over effort, to the consistency of character over the quantity of gestures. The emotional investment she makes is proportional to the alignment she senses in him, not the attention he showers. And here's where it gets even more interesting. This loyalty isn't conscious. Women rarely articulate it. They may not even fully understand why they feel it themselves, but the patterns are unmistakable. She will consistently invest in a man who exhibits self-reliance, emotional balance, and integrity. She will notice how he handles stress, how he honors his commitments, how he navigates life's uncertainties. These signals speak louder than anything you could say or do. Understanding this is transformative. It shifts the goal from trying to earn approval through actions to developing an unshakable presence that naturally inspires commitment. It explains why so many men feel confused, exhausted, or undervalued in their relationships. The effort they pour in is disconnected from the psychological triggers of loyalty. And once you see this, you can stop chasing reactions and start cultivating a presence that invites loyalty effortlessly. Now that we've identified the invisible force that shapes loyalty, let's talk about the qualities that actually cultivate it. These aren't things you can buy, schedule, or force. They are ways of being. And they are far more powerful than any gesture, gift, or grand romantic effort. When a man embodies these qualities, women feel grounded, seen, and naturally connected. They sense reliability without words, and loyalty grows almost effortlessly. The first quality is consistency. This is not perfection, it is steadiness. Women are attuned to patterns more than promises. If you consistently honor your word, maintain your boundaries, and respond predictably in situations of stress or uncertainty, she perceives you as someone whose life is anchored. That anchor is magnetic because it creates an unspoken sense of safety. She doesn't have to wonder who you are from one moment to the next. And that clarity builds trust. Trust builds intimacy, and intimacy builds loyalty. The second quality is emotional resilience. Women instinctively notice how a man handles life's pressures, conflicts, and disappointments. Emotional resilience isn't about suppressing feelings or never experiencing doubt. It's about responding to challenges with clarity rather than chaos. A man who can navigate his emotions without being controlled by them signals that he can also navigate life with competence and stability. This isn't a superficial trait, it's deeply psychological. Women are wired to align with men whose emotional stability promises security for themselves and, if they choose, for a shared life. The third quality is purpose and direction. Loyalty follows a man who knows where he is going, even if the path is not perfectly clear. Purpose is magnetic because it signals self-sufficiency. When a man moves through life with intent, driven by values and goals rather than external validation, he projects a presence that commands attention and invites alignment. Women may not articulate this, but they feel it. It matters more than your achievements. It's the projection of self-mastery that resonates. Finally, there is integrity, the alignment between words, actions, and values. Nothing erodes loyalty faster than inconsistency between what a man says and how he behaves. Integrity creates predictability, trust, and respect. It's quiet, powerful, and profoundly attractive because it communicates that you are trustworthy at your core. A woman who senses this doesn't cling out of fear or manipulation. She invests willingly, confident in the stability she feels around you. Together, these qualities form a foundation that no amount of effort alone can replicate. They create a presence that women respond to instinctively, often without realizing why. Loyalty isn't about grand gestures. It's about the subtle, persistent signals of who you are. And the beauty of this is that cultivating these traits doesn't require her permission, her attention, or her approval. It's about becoming a man whose life is internally coherent, emotionally balanced, and purpose-driven. When you shift your focus from trying to earn loyalty through actions to embodying these qualities, you stop chasing reactions and start creating natural alignment. And alignment, once established, is far more powerful than anything else you could do. Even when a man understands the essence of loyalty, there are patterns that unknowingly sabotage it. These are subtle, almost invisible behaviors, but their impact is profound. Most men think they are showing care, attention, or effort, but in reality, they are undermining the very traits that women are instinctively drawn to: consistency, emotional balance, purpose, and integrity. The first mistake is overcompensation. You may feel that if you try harder, do more, or constantly prove yourself, she will stay loyal. But this often communicates insecurity rather than confidence. When a man overcompensates, she senses that he is reacting to fear, not leading from presence. Loyalty is drawn to stability, not anxiety. Effort that comes from self-doubt signals the opposite of reliability. It signals unpredictability, which triggers withdrawal, not attachment. The second mistake is emotional volatility. Women respond to emotional intensity, but only when it is anchored in stability. Outbursts, overreactions, or mood swings create uncertainty. If she never knows whether you will respond calmly or react impulsively, her sense of safety is compromised. No matter how much you do for her in those moments, your actions cannot repair the internal alarm she feels. Loyalty thrives where emotions are acknowledged, processed, and expressed with clarity, not where they dominate or dictate behavior. A third common pitfall is values inconsistency. Women observe how you prioritize your life, sometimes more than you realize. If your words and actions conflict or your principles shift depending on convenience or desire, she notices. Even small inconsistencies erode trust over time. Loyalty is drawn to men who are predictable in the best sense, whose core values are unshakable, even when circumstances change. It's the silent proof that he can be counted on. Another mistake is seeking approval, trying to win her validation, asking for reassurance, or measuring your worth through her reactions signals dependence rather than strength. When a man's self-esteem is externally anchored, it triggers the opposite of loyalty. It creates subtle tension, doubt, and distance. Women are instinctively loyal to men who are self-anchored, who move through life with internal stability, and whose presence is grounded in purpose rather than reaction. The last mistake is neglecting self-mastery. Many men focus entirely on pleasing, giving, or supporting, forgetting that loyalty is drawn to a man who masters himself first. Physical, emotional, and mental discipline, the ability to manage your life, your emotions, and your priorities, signals security at the deepest level. Without it, no amount of effort can replace the subconscious perception of reliability that drives female loyalty. Recognizing these patterns is crucial because awareness alone begins to shift how you exist in a relationship. You start to understand that loyalty is not earned in the moment through actions. It is cultivated over time through the consistent embodiment of presence, stability, and integrity. Avoiding these common mistakes isn't about perfection. It's about alignment. Aligning who you are, how you feel, and what you do with the qualities that naturally inspire devotion. When men make this shift, something remarkable happens. They stop chasing reactions, they stop trying to prove themselves, and instead, they create a space where loyalty flows effortlessly because it is drawn to the man he has become, not the gestures he performs. Now that we've identified what loyalty is drawn to and what unintentionally destroys it, the next step is understanding how to cultivate it naturally in your daily life. This isn't about tactics, tricks, or strategies. It's about becoming a man whose presence inherently inspires commitment, trust, and alignment. And the good news is, it's something you can practice and develop consistently without forcing or overcompensating. The first principle is self-consistency. Make your word your bond, not as a performance for her, but as a reflection of your own standards. Small actions matter more than grand gestures. Following through on plans, honoring your commitments, and holding your principles even when it's inconvenient. Consistency signals stability, and stability is the invisible anchor women are instinctively drawn to. When she senses that your life has order and reliability, loyalty begins to flourish almost automatically. The second principle is emotional management. Develop the ability to observe your feelings without being ruled by them. Life is unpredictable, and challenges will arise, but your response to them is what creates or erodes trust. When she sees that you remain composed, thoughtful, and decisive even under pressure, she feels secure. Security, remember, is the unseen currency of loyalty. This doesn't mean hiding your emotions. It means processing them, communicating them when appropriate, and demonstrating that you can remain grounded no matter the circumstances. The third principle is purpose-driven living. Cultivate clarity in your goals, values, and priorities. Women are drawn to men who move through life with direction because it signals independence, self-reliance, and confidence. It's not about perfection or rigid control. It's about showing that your life is guided by intention, not reaction. When your purpose is evident, it communicates that your presence is reliable, and this naturally strengthens the bond of loyalty. The fourth principle is integrity in action. Align your words, decisions, and behaviors. Integrity is quiet but profound. It tells her, without any need for explanation, that she can trust you at the deepest level. A man with integrity doesn't need constant validation, and women sense this immediately. Loyalty is drawn to men whose lives are coherent, whose actions consistently reflect their values, and whose presence is predictable in the best way. Finally, allow space for her autonomy. Ironically, one of the strongest ways to foster loyalty is to respect her independence and individuality. When you remain grounded, self-possessed, and confident in your own life, it creates a magnetic balance. She is free to align with you willingly, rather than out of obligation or fear. Loyalty thrives in environments where trust and security exist, not in those dominated by control, pressure, or over-effort. Cultivating loyalty isn't about doing more for her. It's about becoming more of yourself. When you focus on embodying these qualities, consistency, emotional resilience, purpose, integrity, and respect for autonomy, you create a presence that naturally draws her in. Actions amplify this presence, but they are never the foundation. Loyalty, in its purest form, is a response to who you are at your core, not the things you perform. By now, you understand that loyalty isn't something women earn through your actions. It's something they feel in response to who you are. It is drawn to stability, purpose, integrity, and emotional consistency. It is invisible, quiet, and often misunderstood, but once recognized, it becomes the single most reliable force in deep connection. Most men spend years trying to prove themselves through effort alone, only to feel frustrated, unseen, or unappreciated. That struggle isn't because women are ungrateful. It's because loyalty doesn't respond to effort in isolation. The ultimate insight is simple, yet profoundly overlooked. Women are loyal to a man's essence, not his deeds. This essence is built in how he navigates life, how he carries himself when no one is watching, and how aligned his values are with his actions. The gestures, the attention, the gifts, these are amplifiers, not foundations. They enhance the loyalty that already exists, but they cannot create it where it is absent. Understanding this changes everything. You stop chasing reactions, overcompensating, or trying to earn validation through constant effort. Instead, you focus on becoming a man whose presence inspires trust naturally, a man whose life is anchored, whose emotions are resilient, whose purpose is clear, and whose integrity is unwavering. When you do this, you create alignment that cannot be fabricated or forced. This is not about manipulation, control, or performance. It is about self-mastery. It is about living in a way that naturally invites loyalty because it is rooted in reality, not in expectation. The women who feel this connection aren't just responding to what you do, they are responding to who you are. When you embody this truth, relationships shift. Effort is no longer a currency, tension fades, and loyalty flows effortlessly. And that is the power of understanding female psychology at its deepest level, to inspire devotion not through doing more, but through being more. Finally, allow space for her autonomy. Ironically, one of the strongest ways to foster loyalty is to respect her independence and individuality. When you remain grounded, self-possessed, and confident in your own life, it creates a magnetic balance. She is free to align with you willingly, rather than out of obligation or fear. Loyalty thrives in environments where trust and security exist, not in those dominated by control, pressure, or over-effort. Cultivating loyalty isn't about doing more for her. It's about becoming more of yourself. When you focus on embodying these qualities, consistency, emotional resilience, purpose, integrity, and respect for autonomy, you create a presence that naturally draws her in. Actions amplify this presence, but they are never the foundation. Loyalty in its purest form is a response to who you are at your core, not the things you perform.